6 p.m.
It was a match to savour. Arguably the game of the season.
On the interchange bench, great tackle by the youngster. Pickett throws the ball.
A contest full of skill.
Long. Carey, no! Man in front's his teammate, Tom Blaney.
Pain.
He runs into a wall on that 50 and he's going nowhere.
Drama.
You want to say goodnight to the folks, Gracie? I think Wayne Carey just has.
And humanity.
Well, that's round one, Wayne might say.
Because Wayne Schwass, for the first time in 191 games, played against his mates. Twice North's best and fairest, Schwass won a premiership medallion against Sydney. Now playing for the Swans, he was among their best as they fell to the Kangaroos in a classic. But Saturday's match, if it tells us anything, suggests that it may not be the last time these two sides meet in 1998. And maybe then, Wayne Schwass might square the ledger. Thanks for joining us on Football Feedback. We'll be talking about North's great win with dashing defender David King a little later on. Tiger Ben Harrison and Bulldog Matthew Dent will also be with us to discuss their respective weekends. We'll be crossing live down to the Tribunal, where Brian Waldron is standing by to bring us all the news from the 3 cases up tonight, and there is one result already. But before we get around to doing any of that, let me introduce Dermot Brereton. Big weekend for the Victorian teams. 5 of them beat teams from other sides of the border. And even old Carlton, poor old Carlton, went pretty close.
They gave it a rattle, didn't they? But just the comment on that game between the Swans and North Melbourne, what a superb performance by both teams. I've gone through it, and those 2 teams would have beaten 12 other sides in the league on the weekend, no doubt about it. The only ones they mightn't have got over the top was maybe the Western Bulldogs and Melbourne, who were travelling very nicely. So they are in good nick, both of those sides.
Tremendous match. And what a great game at the MCG on Sunday. Gary Lyon, easy for you, though, on the sidelines, just watching the boys do all the hard work.
Physically easy, not so mentally. I'm usually a very passive watcher of footy, and I've had a bit of practice in the past couple of years, as you constantly remind me. But yesterday I did it pretty hard, I've got to say. In the last minute and a half, 2 minutes was pretty tough stuff. And I was just very thankful we got up by 3 points. And the only way, Tim, it could have been better had it been 1 point.
Over Collingwood.
Yes. And Travis Johnson kicked a flying point on the siren. A few of the boys said tonight, wouldn't it have been great if it was a draw? And that was the kick as the ball was in flight, Dermot.
You're going to live to regret that quote. George Harris said that 20 years ago.
Who?
Well, you might live to regret saying that too.
Rowan Conley, good evening.
How are you, Tim?
Any offers, any coaching offers since last week?
No, unfortunately none. I think the Dendy Park under-12s might be slightly interested, but a few contractual problems. We think we can negotiate around them. But good weekend of footy. I went to the Hall of Fame dinner on Saturday night in the where you were yourself, in the Plaza Ballroom, and yeah, it's good to see the human face of footy, I suppose. Some good, really nice speeches made and some great old footage put up, and a few of my heroes in attendance. It was a big night.
It was a stirring occasion, and never more so than when John Kennedy started as the chairman of the panel that inducts new members to the Hall of Fame, started to make his speech. His nose began to bleed, and he said, "Well, this is a challenge. I always said injuries above the neck don't count," and proceeded to press on. It was a great night.
Salted on magnificently.
How good is this show, Dermot? We've had Ted Whitten, and now we've got John Kennedy. It's getting bigger and bigger every week.
We're waiting for you guys to contribute.
I'll come up with
Yeah, I'm able to take off Alan Jeans. I'm just waiting for you and Joe Gutnick.
Oh, please.
Just before we go to the Tribunal, a look at the winners in round 8. Terrific round it was. West Coast squeaking home from a fast finish in Carlton. Not as tight though as Melbourne against Collingwood at the MCG. Essendon back on the winning list on Friday night. That classic at the MCG on Saturday with North Melbourne home by 10. Geelong by 22 over an inaccurate Fremantle at Cardinia Park. The Saints in a lacklustre affair over Port Adelaide. Richmond a tremendous come-from-behind victory at Football Park. And the Western Bulldogs keep on rolling right to the top of the ladder. They're outright leaders by a game ahead of Sydney, Melbourne and St Kilda. Look at that top four. It would have been just an average bottom four only 2 or 3 years ago. Richmond now solid in the 8. Badly needed wins for West Coast and Essendon keep them in touch. And Carlton now have lost 7 in a row for the first time since 1955. If they make it 8 against North Melbourne this weekend, it'll be the first time they've done that since 1901. Let's talk about good news like the Tribunal. Andrew Dunkley first up tonight, the first of 3 players to face Brian Collis and co. And Brian Waldron is on the job. Brian, what's the news?
Yes, Tim, and you mentioned good news, and unfortunately for the Sydney Swans, it is not good news because Andrew Dunkley, after an hour-long hearing, has been suspended for 3 weeks by Brian Collis and his tribunal tonight for what was termed a reckless act against Wayne Carey in the clash on Saturday. Field umpire Brett Allen said he was only 20 metres away from the incident. He said it was an intentional, forceful blow to Carey's head. Dunkley himself said that he was off balance. He knew he had to make a contest because in the 3rd quarter, Carey had out-bustled him at a boundary throw-in that resulted in a goal. He was off balance, he just tried to swipe at the ball. They put up a pretty good case, but unfortunately there was no joy and the tribunal chose to suspend the 29-year-old defender, whose 3rd appearance it was since the 96 preliminary final, has received a 3-week penalty.
Just wondering, Brian, were the Swans arguing maybe like the grand final that they didn't have enough time to prepare, and are we going to see this held over until after the grand final this year?
Yeah, no, I spoke to Cole Seary and look, it's difficult to know. I think had Neil Busy been in there, I know he may well have looked upon the case a bit differently than Brian Collis did. The Swans actually, though, Rowan, put up a pretty good case. They had nothing to lose. They felt, had he gone up with his record anyway and pleaded guilty, he probably would have got 3. So they went for the not guilty. Bert Gordian tried a few things. The old idea of being off balance and throwing your arm up and losing sight of the ball was a good try, but in the end it made no difference and he copped the 3 weeks.
Brian, just on that one quickly, Wayne Carey, I imagine, would still be from the old school and perhaps put in a word that would look good for Andrew Dunkley. And it looked like Wayne accidentally threw his arm back, which caught Dunks in the face first, which inspired him to give Wayne a clip.
No doubt, Dermot, it was totally accidental because he had no idea where Dunkley's head was, I'm sure. He was pretty good, actually, Wayne Carey. He did say that he overreacted, and he did say that he came out publicly and said that on Saturday night. He overreacted. He tried to stage for the 50 metres because he felt, and this is quite ironic, that he was too far out to kick a goal, would you believe? And, of course, we all know he went back and put through about a 60-metre goal after that. So that was a very important case. So Cole Seary and the Swans disappointed. Andrew Dunkley himself very disappointed. But when you've got a record such as his, and it's the 3rd time really in just over a season that you've been up, you can't expect much less.
Brian, could be a tough night for the defendants. 2 more to come. You might just take us through them, Gavin Mitchell and Philip Reid.
Oh, the Gavin Mitchell one's a classic. I'd say that the verdict is just about done. Look, I've been wrong before at the tribunal many a time, but I'd be very confident Gavin Mitchell's going to get off. The umpire Cersei was 40 metres away from the incident. Dermot, you'd be wrapped in fingers Finlay tonight. He was fantastic. There was an umpire 5 metres away and he was asking all the obvious questions to umpire Cersei, who actually said he saw Gavin Mitchell's eyes being on Wanganeen. Wanganeen said he felt a blow to the chest, nothing more than that. So it's very hopeful that Gavin Mitchell will get off. I'll go back up and get a result on that now. The other case, young Philip Reid from the West Coast, that may also be a pretty quick case, Tim, because I understand he is going to plead guilty to striking Aaron Hamill from Carlton. So I'll head up there now, find out what the result is and come back as soon as I can.
Thanks for that, Brian. Brian Waldron covering the tribunal for us tonight. Andrew Dunkley out for 3. Didn't look good for him once you saw that he effectively pointed and said he got me first, which is like an admission that it was an act of retaliation.
Spur of the moment comment that you may live to regret, but I guess his record didn't do him any favours either. Dunks.
You do learn like that, and I will say, having been there quite a lot of times, you learn in the situation, Gary, as soon as the umpire comes to him, you learn mentally to click into what the right thing to say is. And
He's a learned man.
Yeah, you just don't do that. You don't learn by virtue of the fact that you're going up there for your 17th time, but when the umpire comes to you, you realise what he's pulling out of his pocket.
What chance we'll see Dermot at the AFL Talent Scout camp, perhaps delivering this very speech to all the youngsters about how to get off the tribunal?
What about making him a player's advocate?
Yeah,
Hey, I'd have a crack at that. I actually thought Dunks was a 50-50 there. I wasn't quite sure that it was, you know... Oh, look, it was a bit grey, wasn't it? But I think young Mitchell might be in a bit of strife, considering he had to jump 3 feet off the ground to actually make contact.
Well, Brian mentioned the acting which followed that, and I think that was probably the worst part of the incident, possibly the worst acting since Breakers, that absolutely pathetic drama set in Bondi Beach on another channel. Yeah, that was... No, look, I mean, seriously...
too much at home.
If you were going to
get out more.
If you were going to stage for free kicks, you got to make it good. That was just shocking, really.
Rowan, no action from the AFL, I believe, on the Tallis-Romero scuffle at Waverley.
No action yet, but plenty of intrigue. We'll just see it here. And it's hard to pick up some of this stuff, of course, but what is interesting is that though Hawthorn weren't lodging an official complaint, after the match they were quite willing to let the media take photos of the scratches on Tallis. Now, this has come to the AFL's attention today, and I can say they're less than happy about it. And they've actually released a statement saying that, contrary to some reports, there will not be an investigation, certainly not unless Hawthorn is prepared to come out and make an official complaint. So that's about where that one stands.
I like that head-to-head super they had up there. It's more like neck and neck.
Well, you know, I think... It was a funny sort of way for Hawthorn to handle it after what happened with the Steve Lawrence thing a few weeks ago, because I think that made it fairly clear what how the league wants clubs to treat these cases, and I suppose the way Hawthorn's gone about it probably isn't what they want.
It's a bit tough on clubs, though, putting the onus on them, isn't it? I mean,
well,
the AFL has been prepared at times to launch investigations. Why is it selective, and why does it place the onus on clubs in ones which are a little less obvious, but in which it's quite clear that there was a bit of funny business going on?
I think that's a good thing, actually, because I know it sort of goes against the traditional football code, but a lot of these things were only being brought to the league's attention through the covert actions of clubs anyway, and leaking stuff to the media. So, really,
But why should clubs have to lay complaints?
Well, because if they leak it to the media, that's essentially what they're doing anyway. They're just taking a fairly...
Can't clubs not leak it to the media, let the media discover it themselves, and let the AFL investigate? I mean, if John Kennedy was the coach of the Hawthorn Football Club, they would never, ever, ever go to the media. Therefore, the onus is up to the AFL to take matters into their own hands.
What have Hawthorn said about this case? Now, I read a little bit in the paper that they weren't happy with... Was that the official line?
Yeah, I mean, they've said...
Or was that unofficial?
No, that's unofficial. They're official. I don't think there was any qualms about them being quoted as being unhappy, but that was all they were going to say on it. But, you know, I mean, clearly, if you say to someone off the record, well, you know, what about this? It's going to become a talking point, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, you know, that's clearly...
That hasn't been done, though. I mean, I think Hawthorn are trying to, you know, act in a fashion that is acceptable in the written...
Asking our photographer to take a shot of Ray.
Well, they didn't ask him to.
No, they said... I wasn't at the game. I don't, you know, I can't sort of say the exact words. Well, the thrust of it was, if you have a photographer in the vicinity and he'd like to come and take a shot of Ray and tell us, he'd be more than welcome.
Well, that would be inflammatory in the extreme, I would have thought.
True. Now, you've got news on the Docklands as well.
Yeah, Essendon today has sent out a 12-page, I think, booklet to all its members about the Docklands proposal. They had a bit of a briefing with journalists today. Basically, the key elements of it are, people might already be aware that Essendon are claiming they'll make an extra $1.2 million a year out of the deal. But I guess the critical information for members and followers of the club is the reserve seat arrangements. They'll be as follows. There'll be 8 to 10,000 seats, which are sold at $13 a pop. That's on top of admission charge. There'll be 5,000 seats set aside for $9. There'll be 8,000 seats at $5, and there'll be a further 7,000 seats put away for Essendon members who don't want to reserve a seat but want to walk up on match day. So, look, the key things there, I suppose, are if you're an Essendon member, you will definitely get in to see the game at the Docklands. If you're an opposition supporter or member and it's a reasonably popular club, I think you might have Buckley's and none. I think the fundamental key issues to come out of this announcement today are, if you're an Essendon supporter and you want to watch them play at the Docklands, you must become a member or you simply won't get in. Secondly, and I think perhaps the greatest ramification for the whole AFL in general, is that there's unlikely to be any of the Docklands games shifted, really. They've gone from saying we will shift games that are over 50,000 to it is an option. So what is far more likely to happen is that you'll see those games televised live against the gate. And that is a very, very big departure from the football attendance culture we've come to know. And I think that's when we really start seeing the change in football.
But Essendon members will get in, which means the chances of getting 40% of the membership to vote for it would probably be fairly good.
Yeah, I reckon there's a fair chance you're probably going to get it through.
Let's go to injuries on the weekend, and Jamie Tape has had his season wrecked with a nasty fall and a broken wrist at the MCG.
Yeah, broken in 2 places too, so it's a particularly bad one. As you can see there, he's in a heap of pain. But they're saying there, I think, absolute minimum of about 8 weeks. So it's pretty unfortunate for him. I think he's been a bit in and out so far at the start of the year, but was just starting to...
That was his best game, the start of his best game.
This is nasty. Watch the way he comes down.
Oh, yeah.
Good reaction. Great.
Wincing at the sight of yourself, eh? Right, yeah.
Well, you know.
One of those spring-heeled Brett Allison leaps brought him to grief at the MCG.
Yeah, and in exactly the same position as that mark over Gavin Krasiska, but yeah, not good news for him either. A strained medial ligament. I don't think it's torn, but they're still saying somewhere between about 4 and 6 weeks for him.
I reckon he strained that mid-air. Well, when would he have done...
Lack of oxygen, was it?
No, he was sort of flung out there. He wouldn't have happened on contact to the ground, would it? Or not?
I think it just pushed it, and then as it hit, the ankle might have hit first and opened it up a bit.
Maybe. Perhaps you're right again, Dan.
Shane Bond,
Most probably.
Port Adelaide.
Shane Bond, yeah, not another bad one. Between 3 and 5 with, again, a strained medial ligament. Interesting too, I think that's the 6th serious knee injury a Port player's had so far this season. So the injuries are starting to mount up for them a bit, and he's obviously a very key player for them.
Tied himself up in knots, didn't he, when he was actually approaching Berkey there? He almost looked, I think I'll blind turn here, no, I'll dance to the right, no, I'll come back to the left on the end, and just, in the end, just ran straight into it.
And a couple of similar ones, hamstrings while the player involved was kicking. Robbie Ahmed first.
This one was sad because he was really firing. You know, he was playing a great game, and Rocket Eade said after the game they see him and John Stevens, the other guy who got injured, as being key elements of their whole game plan. So very untimely loss for him. He looks like missing at least 2, maybe 3.
And Jeff Farmer in similar sort of manner for Melbourne.
Yeah, well again. There's this incredible passage here where he had to get up and I think he dished off a handball, didn't he, Gaz?
Did,
it was very reminiscent of you, actually. But
walking around like that.
You run out like that.
that's what I meant. Well, he's had the scan today, and yeah, look, it is. They were hoping it might just be a bad corky, but it is. Oh, that is just gutsy stuff.
Oh yeah, I spoke to him tonight at training, and it's not a serious hamstring tear, which would put you back 4 or 6 weeks.
So what are we
It's more
talking?
Strain 1 to 2.
1 to 2.
Strain, he looked like he'd been poison darted from the stands there, Gaz.
Yeah, he's hadn't had much luck. Back-related hammies.
Right, okay.
And just a couple more injuries too. We don't have vision of these, but probably very important in the wash-up for Adelaide. They've lost Andrew McLeod for at least 4 weeks, probably 6. He's had surgery today to have some cartilage removed from his knee, so very bad one for them. And Kane Johnson's got a really bad hamstring, and he'll miss at least 3 too. So they're in all sorts of trouble, the Crows.
We'll take a break. When we come back, dashing David King from the North Melbourne defence. And as we go to our break, a big statement from Jimmy Steins after a great Melbourne victory.
Best win I've ever played, and it's unbelievable. The boys did the job. It's all that matters. Once we're still standing, we're winning when that siren goes.
Hurry to Harvey Norman for a super deal on a Samsung Intellect refrigerator. The Intellect is a 560-litre upside-down frost-free fridge freezer. It features through-the-door water dispenser, large sliding rail vegetable bins, twist ice tray and much more. The Intellect fridge is superb value at $21.95. When you want Samsung, come to Harvey Norman, your electrical specialist.
Everybody loves Harvey Norman.
I sometimes feel I was born to run. It's my way. It's my gift. Come and see the thrill of knowing there's someone chasing and he's never going to catch me. That sort of faith in my own ability, that's what makes it real for me. And being real is what it's all about.
Get the authentic gear that AFL players wear. Get real, get on field.
for misconduct.
It's good news, the bushfire.
Barefaced
Australia.
Best of the best this week, and West Coast Brendan Fuster starts us off with a great grab. Shows of the Carlton great Keith Warburton.
He was a great Keith Warburton.
Yeah, he took a few like that in his day. Back in the
Another blue follows up. Brad Pearce off the deck, and Dermot, shades of Nicholas Anelka. He's an Arsenal soccer player, if you didn't know.
I knew that. Yeah, good
Who was
shot.
any Arsenal in that goal?
Tiger Robbie Power, watch him get airborne here. Big catch here from the little ex-Magpie.
Yes, good grab. The former Demon Trent Orman-Allen stops Ashley Prescott in his tracks. A terrific tackle from young Krakatoa, nickname.
Well, let's go to a current Demon, and he is launching himself here on the weekend, Gaz. Sean Smith, doing what he does
That's
best.
usually me when Mel Michael is.
Lands on his knees.
Wasn't this a handy effort from young Jeffrey White? Not bad for a bloke of 6'6" from the boundary.
Frankston Rovers lad.
Yes.
And Brent Montgomery, he's got a mortgage on a spot in Bob each week. Another great hover here from the little Bulldog flanker.
Montgomery. Third week in a row. He's taking one every week. Another hanger by Brett Montgomery. Hadbury mark of the week.
Yes, and Jason Dunster wasn't to be outdone by Brad Pearce. Another great soccer goal from the Hawk champ. It's not a bad finish from the young pig.
I don't know who they're going to shift off him now.
Big Tony's next. He lays a ferocious tackle on John Blakey. Look out! There he goes, wrapped up. One Blakey you don't want to get grabbed by.
I mean, there's just no escaping a tackle like that.
Yeah, and here, in fact, is not... it must be John Blakey. Yes, it is. And very well done to Andrew Marr this week. Terrific catch from John Blakey.
That doesn't make me go into the next one with a lot of confidence. You can go with
Justin
it.
Leppich, the young Dermot Brereton, rolls one through a la Barnsley, and he's pretty chuffed about it too. Look at him. Shades of you, Derm.
And Fremantle youngster Trent Carroll, he rounds things off here. Look out. And lights out. Paul Corrigan on the receiving end there. Bad luck, son. Well done to Carroll, though. He lined it up pretty well.
Good hit.
Yes, you realise Corrigan got knocked out by a docker. Very topical, that one.
Very good.
Yes.
Well, our first guest tonight came to the AFL the old-fashioned way via the VFA and Port Melbourne to boot, but his back pocket play is not so much old-fashioned as very 1970s, running, risk-taking, daring and usually winning. But he's a vital cog in that mean North Melbourne defence. David King, good evening, thanks for joining us.
No worries.
Do you pride yourselves on being the meanest bunch of defenders in the business back there?
I don't think we're the meanest, we probably look the meanest, that's what Dermy keeps saying.
Does Mickey frighten you as much as he frightens us?
No, I think if you get to know Mick, he doesn't frighten you that much.
You've done a fair bit of work off the half-back line once again, 30-odd possessions. It almost seems to me like you're willing to play like a forward mentality out of the back line. You just keep running forward.
Yeah, I suppose we've got to be attacking, you know, make the opposition work both ways, I guess, but it's something that we work at very hard with Pikey, myself. Obviously, Wayne Squash not there this year, so we've got to pick up the workload.
She's a bit tight, that jumper, mate. Is it you gone down a size?
Only up the top there, Derm.
Beautiful.
What about your background at Port King? Were you a backman there?
No, I started probably on the wing down there and then ended up down back towards the end of the career there, but I was vastly different to the VFA, mate.
And you played wing for North in the beginning. How did the move occur into defence?
Oh, we had a very settled back line when I first went there with Ross Smith and Dean Laidley and these guys, and obviously with those guys getting to the end of their career was a chance for someone to slide backwards, and I wasn't getting much of a kick on the wing, so it was a good opportunity for me to get back.
There's no doubt when you were actually in the VFA, there was a lot of talk about you, and some people went through that mentality from the VFA, don't know if you can cut it. It's almost breeding the wrong instincts into footballers to become AFL footballers. Have we missed out on some gun footballers who, because of the mentality, haven't come up through that that policy?
I think a lot of the guys, certainly when I was there, could have easily played AFL. There was a lot of guys even in our own side at Port Melbourne that had either had AFL experience or that I thought, for years were a better player than I was. So I suppose I'd agree with that.
Give us a name. Who's a name you think might have been unlucky?
Guys that I played with especially, Gavin Edwards at Richmond, Howard Cameron, Collingwood. There's certainly two that spring to mind.
What about Glenn Archer now? He strikes me as a bloke that would have fitted in very nicely in the VFA about 10 or 15 years ago. And look, he's one of my, I've got to say, he's one of my favourite players, Derm, and from all reports he had a blinder on Saturday.
Oh, he was unbelievable on the weekend. He's just got no fear for his own safety, and I think he likes playing in front of Plugger actually, just to, he just loves showing himself in front of trucks, I think.
Yeah. It's almost a contest within it, isn't it? I mean, I've seen it before in teams. Who can show the most courage? One bloke does it and another bloke has to outdo him, and what you get in the end is a great big snowballing of effect of everybody doing the absolute team-orientated things.
He just does it so consistently that it lifts everyone on the ground, and on the weekend everything he went for came off and it was fantastic.
It must have been a very satisfying win coming off that loss. You've been overrun in the last quarter, which you wouldn't have enjoyed, and there was a real sense of North going out there to show they're still around and mean business. This clip, in fact, just shows that sort of the powerhouse steamrolling efforts of North Melbourne. A special build-up for the game?
Oh, I guess when you play the good sides, you really have to be at your best to win it. And the week before, we probably had a few guys that didn't contribute as much as what they would like to have, and you just can't win games like that. And this week, I think we had 20 of the 22 that performed at their best, and that's why you win these games.
This is great footy, isn't it? I mean, this is just bodily pressure moving the ball forward. The only time I've ever seen this was a tiny passage of play in the '88 grand final, Gaz, which has been cited a few times between Hawthorn and Melbourne. I mean, Dennis has got to take a lot of responsibility for that type of play there, which we've just seen.
Yeah, I think most of the guys at North, they like to, like you say, put their body on the line, and that's where you win the games, I suppose.
It's pretty intense sort of footy, and it comes from a pretty intense sort of a coach. Do you think it's pretty hard to maintain that intensity over what is a pretty long season, and that's why perhaps sometimes you just drop away a little bit? Because I'd imagine it's pretty hard to stay at that level.
Yeah, I don't know, like guys have their breaks for different reasons, through injury and suspension and whatnot. So with different guys coming in and out of the side and the pressure that's coming from below, it's probably not that hard. You probably don't realise why you're actually doing it.
Actually, Glenn Freeborn said to us on 3LO on Saturday that you've prided yourselves on being the best muscle side in the game, and that he feels that some sides have lifted in that area now and have tended to throw down the gauntlet, and you've almost had to review your position in that regard. Is that how you'd see it?
I think when West Coast Eagles won their flags, they looked superior in physique to the rest of the competition. I suppose North have picked that up from there, and all the other sides at the same time would have done that. And I suppose when you are successful for a brief period, other sides look at what you're doing and they alter their structure.
I've got to ask you about the little bloke in the middle for you, Stevens. He's essentially made his name as a tagger. And he's played a great role in playing on blokes, but playing off them.
Was it a mark?
Spun in the air there, like he had Kelly again on the weekend.
Gee, you'd almost have to pay that, I reckon.
It's a great tactic, that one, though, isn't it? To watch the player in front of him. So many blokes are going to run and infringe, but then realises by the actions that Kelly's making when to turn in the air and the ball's going to be there.
He actually does that quite a bit. If you watch the game, he's probably tried it 2 or 3 times on the weekend. I mean, obviously he's caught our position at the start, but it's a fantastic thing to do.
It's a great skill because, as you say, 90% of the time that a free kick's given by just taking the arms and conceding the mark. I mean, that is a real skill, and again, takes courage, and it's something he's got plenty of. That's for sure.
That's right.
Interesting stat. Your handball tally was way up at the weekend. Your season's average 79. Against Sydney 114, and it's your highest since late in 1996. That just happened by accident?
I'd say so. We're not a huge handballing side, as you know, but that's part of the pressure of it. If there's a lot of pressure on during the game, obviously under pressure you'll handball first.
I thought that actually on the weekend, and that stat did occur to me, that that passage of play we saw when you just move the ball the length of the ground just through bodily means, just pumping it forward. A lot of the handballs, because of the pressure, were just to clear the pack. That normally doesn't happen with North Melbourne. Would you say that the Swans have given you the most pressure this year of any team? I know you've lost a few games, but taking that into account, I mean, this game you seem to really hit your straps as a team. That was perhaps your best performance against the best opposition you've come up against.
Probably pressure when we actually had the ball was probably the highest. I mean, against Footscray, or the Bulldogs, I should say.
Yep.
They probably kept the ball off us a lot more than you'd like, and you really can't compare those two sides. But I mean, the games that we've lost have been to Melbourne, Bulldogs, and obviously playing a close one against Sydney. You can't really compare the three sides, but there's plenty of pressure in those three games.
Just another incident from the weekend. Wayne Carey involved a bit with Dunkley, as we saw earlier, here with Rowan Walk. There was no 50 and no report at the time, and there hasn't been one since. An interesting one where the foot seemed to come out. We were talking in relation to the melee last week about whether or not it was consistent, and you'd have to wonder whether that's consistent with the approach that has been adopted to that sort of thing, or was it an accident?
Well, if he pays a free kick for a trip,
by foot, it's got to get 50.
So yeah. He's showing his hand by paying the free kick. I'd imagine it's for a trip.
Well, hang on. How does it go, David? You're the... Oh, I almost said you're the undercurrent player here. If you trip by hand... Sorry, Gary. You're my hero. You're right there. If you trip by hand, that is a free kick plus 50. If you trip by foot, free kick 50 and report, I believe.
I think any intentional trip is 50, but I mean, you've seen a few of those reported late last year and this year, so I don't know. It's sort of half by accident, really, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, I think
your interpretation's right, Dan. I think you did right. Mm. So that's a blue, which is, let's not harp on it.
So you're criticising. A build-up to the match that was a little special, with Wayne Schwass playing his first game against North Melbourne. You can tell us all now. We see some moments at the end of the game, and there's Shannon Grant, who of course was involved in the swap, and some really nice scenes at the end of it all, with lots of handshakes and lots of good feeling. But what about in the lead-up to the game?
Well, there's a lot of pressure on both those boys, and I think they both played very well. Wayne got a lot of the ball again. He's had a fantastic year up there, and I really think that it's kick-started his career again, and maybe he was a bit stale at North, and it was probably the best thing for him to do. And all the guys, I think they actually enjoyed playing against him in the end of it all. They probably, they had a couple of drinks with him after the game on Saturday night. He come back and to the red back there and mixed with a few of the guys. So it was, it was a great game and a great feeling amongst the boys.
What's it like, Dan? You come up against your old teammate on 6 or 7 occasions a year. What's it like?
It's unusual. It is very unusual when you play against a team you've been with for a decade or more. So yeah, you don't know. Sometimes you want to get out there and you want to belt them. Sometimes you want to just beat them with ability. It's an unbelievable feeling that feel like I suppose it's like playing against your family, your brothers, and that. Strange.
We caught up with Shannon Grant today and asked him about his experience in the lead up to this match.
We didn't talk much during the game, but just after the game we sort of wished each other the best and said, that we hope we both have good years.
Did it, I guess with all the talk of, Schwass going up there and you coming down here, did it seem a bit strange that you actually lined up on him? Or?
No, it didn't seem too strange. I mean, we're both playing in the midfield and, there was always that chance I thought they were going to end up on each other.
Shannon Grant, and David, you've lost a great player, but it looks as though you might have acquired a very good one too, with lots of years in front of him.
No, he's been great this year. He really has, and like I said before, he's got a lot of pressure on him, and he's wearing it quite well.
And the pace thing, as a speedster yourself, there was a bit of talk about the fact that he just might have lacked a little bit of toe.
I think the guys that use the ball well, it doesn't really restrict them that much. If he probably didn't have the skills that he's got, it might hamper him, but he's such a good finisher.
He's as good a deliverer of the footy as I've seen, I reckon, this year. Kicking to a lead, kicking to space. I don't think I've seen too many better going around the comp this year. Is that a fair comment?
He's a typical left footer, isn't he? But he's a great, got good goal sense around him too. Like, he kicked another good goal on the weekend.
I'll tell you what I like about his kicking action, and you take this on board. The sole of his foot, he strikes the ball, and the whole sole of the foot actually plants on the ground flat at one time, not the heel, not the toe straight after, which just shows he's able to punch through the ball in a downward motion. He really gets some purchase on the ball.
Beautiful kick. I'd love to be on the end of him. Nearly was, but how you did it, you blokes. Got under our guard.
Talking about Dennis Pagan earlier, and he is a master of just sort of pressing the play button when he's asked a question at his post-match press conferences, and you get all the coach speak coming out, making sure he says a lot but says absolutely nothing. Well, he pressed the play button at one stage on Saturday night, but he had the wrong tape in.
I just couldn't sing the praises highly enough for people like Archer, Martin, Grant, Swass, Grant, what am I saying? Val, Stevens.
It was last year's tape. He's an intense man. Good to see a smile on his face there. Does he sort of wear you down at times during the season?
Oh no, I guess it doesn't really to me. I mean, we don't. If you're playing okay, then I suppose he's off your back. But if you're not getting a kick, I suppose he might wear you down a bit. But it was funny to see him say that, wasn't it?
Well, what he has done is produce a team that year in, year out now is highly competitive, and that's not easily achieved. It says something about him and North Melbourne, that they've kept on doing it when other teams have struggled to stay on top.
They get a very good blend, you know, and the back line always good and quite potent up forward. And obviously, you know, you trade something of quality, you get something quality back. As long as you're right in your estimations of the people you get, and they seem to have hit the mark with Shannon Grant.
And not only recruit players and put together a good team, but a durable team. You know, these guys seem to come up year after year without too many key injuries. I guess Corey McKernan would be the one who's had a few of recent times, but very durable, which I reckon is important.
And just a final one, David, we talked about your VFA background. Do you reckon the AFL's a bit soft after the VFA?
No, I don't think it's soft at all, but Dermy's out of the game now, so it's probably lightened up a bit.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
And just repeating the news from the tribunal, an outcome from that game, Andrew Dunkley has been suspended for 3 weeks after being found guilty of striking Wayne Carey. Gavin Mitchell still facing his charge of striking Gavin Wanganeen, and the other case is going to be a guilty plea, we're told by Brian Waldron from the West Coast Eagles, Philip Reid. But 3 weeks for Andrew Dunkley, and as we go to a break before we meet Richmond's Ben Harrison, Wayne Carey's response.
They lead by 11 points, and any score resulting from this will hurt. That's a big kick from Wayne Carey. That is an answer. Oh, and what an answer. You want inspiration, you want to be fired up, you want to say goodnight to the folks, Gracie? Well, I think Wayne Carey just has.
Nice Harley.
Yeah.
These are our heroes. This is the song we sing. This is devotion, and this is loyalty. These are our heroes. We can all dream to be. It's simple and it's right. I want my football every night. Nothing beats it, that's what I say. I want my football every day. I want my football. I want my football. I want my football.
Here's something to yell about. We've got cute canines, cuddly cats, kissing camels, heroic horses, cheeky chimps, elephants that fly, pandas that death defy, gorillas going ape, lions that growl. During May, we roll out the movies where the animals are the stars in Animal Antics on Movie Extra.
Welcome back, and our next guest was part of another great victory in round 8. Ben Harrison played just 2 games with Carlton before being involved in a swap with Justin Murphy in a deal between the Blues and the Tigers. He responded with actions rather than words, becoming a valuable citizen at Punt Road and, more importantly, kicking the goal to sink the Blues' finals chances in 1997. And he was part of a great Tiger victory on the weekend against Adelaide. Almost as good a moment, Ben, as perhaps that round 22 one last year.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely the highlight so far since I've been to Richmond, that win on the weekend, especially after last year, so it was good to get a little bit of payback on that.
What was the feeling at three-quarter time?
Well, we'd been coming home hard the last couple of games in the last quarter, so we felt we were really in it, and it was a hot day, and we thought with our younger players and that we could run over the top, but I mean, it was 19 points down, and we still a little bit, we didn't know, how we were going to go, but we got over the line.
Is it one of those feelings as a team, you haven't, a young team really, you haven't been together long enough, you don't know how you're going to go. The opposition struggling a little bit at that point in time, and I think you were actually kicking into the wind last quarter?
Yeah, we were kicking a little bit of a breeze, but I mean, I think especially last year there was a little bit of inexperience. We didn't know every game we'd rock up how we're going to go, and that's shone through in our results. This year I think we know each other a lot better, and we've been drilled very well on opponents, and we just seem to be getting over the line at the end of the day.
I've got to say, just before Ryan asks you a question, I've got to say I'm glad to see you getting kicks against other teams, because I thought you only played well against Hawthorn there for a while, and it was killing us.
You mentioned the loss last year, Ben. Was that specifically referred to during the week? Because just going through the stats, since that game, you blokes have won, I think, 9 of your last 15 matches. Completely turned the whole situation around.
Yeah, we didn't harp on it too much before the game. I mean, it's not something you can forget really easily. It was a terrible day, and the players who played that day really wanted to get the payback on the Crows for that one. So, I mean, we went out, wanting to get a good start, because that's what happened to us last time. I think we were 50 points down in the first quarter last year, so we just wanted to get a good start. We knew if we did that, we'd be in with a chance.
And the crowd certainly would have given you a generous reception when you walked off for the effort, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I noticed they took the score off the scoreboard really straight away, actually, so yeah, they weren't real impressed. Very quiet.
Your own transformation, Ben, it's been stunning, battling to get a game at Carlton, and you now really are a valuable part of the Richmond lineup. How do you explain it?
I think I came over, I was 17 still, and I just had no idea of what I was doing really. I mean, I didn't know how fit I had to get and how much I had to work, and when I got to Richmond, I thought this is obviously my last chance. I'd been at Carlton a couple of years and hadn't done anything, so I just realised that I had to work a lot harder, and I lost a bit of weight and became a bit better runner, and it's helped me along the way.
Do you think progression naturally, do you think given if you had stayed at Carlton that you might have actually got into the senior team through time and hard work, or do you think it was just a starvation of opportunities?
No, I don't think I was starved of opportunities there. I probably starved myself of opportunities, but I'd like to think that if I stayed there I could have made a go of it, especially now they're struggling a bit. When I was there they had a very solid team in '95 when I left, obviously. Yep. It was hard to get a game, but a lot of younger guys...
might get one now.
Yeah, well, a lot of the younger guys are getting a game now, so there seems to be a lot of opportunity there.
Tell us, yesterday when you were out there in the last quarter, Malcolm Blight's walked around the boundary. As a player, were you aware that the opposition coaching staff has walked off?
I had no idea, but it was something a bit different, wasn't it? I was talking to Richo today, and he didn't know either, and he walked right behind him. So if you just don't notice, I mean, you don't have a look at that sort of thing unless you ran into him when the ball's going over the boundary line or something, but didn't notice.
You mentioned Richo. One of the great things about the Richmond forward line now is there seems to be so much height there. Is it, do you feel like you've got a lot of support around you when the ball's coming into the forward zone now? There's just so many guys who can take a grab.
Yeah, I mean, we work on the theory that we get it into the tall guys and get the crummers to come in underneath, and it seems to be working well. Like Ben Holland took a few good marks in the square yesterday, and Richo's coming back to his best, and other guys, I mean, I've been up there a little bit this year as well.
Brad Ottens when he's been
Brad Ottens, yeah.
You're a different blend on those two, though, Holland and Richardson. Can you play the two of them together?
I think it worked okay yesterday. I mean, we like Richo to lead up to the ball and have Dutchie back in the square for that long bomb because he's so strong. Yep. And you saw yesterday out bustled Ben Hart a fair few times. So I mean, it's a good situation for us to have him down there.
He's like long limb strong, isn't he? He's not your John Nichols build or anything like that, but he's just got those long limbs which just have an amazing amount of strength, and a lot of the guys were saying who had played against him that I've spoken to, so he's deceptively strong.
And he goes all right in the Malibu, apparently.
Yeah, he gets out there and has a paddle, mate. He doesn't mind getting into the wet stuff.
Do you get nervous at Football Park, Richo, because he's done the arm twice there, hasn't he?
I think he did his arm twice and hurt his ankle one year, so he was happy to get through the game and kick a couple of goals.
Just while we're looking at some highlights here too, they were talking about the ground yesterday having sand spread over it. I'm not sure, did it make much of a difference? Did you notice much of a difference?
Yeah, we were there in March for the Ansett Cup, and it was beautiful in March. It was great, and I was surprised how sandy it was, and it was a bit loose underfoot, but it didn't really affect you too much.
Joel Bowden's inclusion in the team coming back from the injury, he's a class act, and I suppose probably the next size down from you. He's not small, but still a bit lighter and the likes. Plays like a real flanker, but capable of being a really mobile flanker come pinch hitter, key position player. Just got oodles of class.
Yeah, well, actually, at three-quarter time, Geese sort of said he'd been a bit down, actually, during the game, and Geese said, Bowdo, we need something from you, and he's come out and kicked 3 goals and nearly won the game for us. So he can do that sort of thing, and, you know, when he gets full match fitness, I think he's only played the last 3 games, so he will just get better and better.
Interesting stat here. You've come from behind in 4 of your 5 wins this year. And in your last quarters, in 5 wins, you've kicked 31-19 to 11-10. In your 3 losses, 7-13 to 9-13. So you're finishing games, even when you're losing, respectably. But I wonder, is it a psychological thing, or do you feel you have a physical edge of some sort?
I think maybe a little bit of both. I mean, psychologically, we were getting, all pre-season, we were getting hammered in the first quarters of every game we were playing. And then we came up against Essendon in round 1 and we had a good start, but then the following week we had a bad start. So, I mean, we can't keep relying on coming home in the last quarter. So we've just got to have an even performance over 4 quarters, or it's just not going to work every week.
So it's a low-scoring affair the last quarter when you blokes lose. So what you need to do is jump the gun on Richmond and pray for rain, Rowan.
Well, I was just going to make the point. I mean, it must be a sign of a better side than you've had in the last few years, that those stats we're looking at there, because I think back to 95 and maybe even 96 even last year, when Richmond played well, they tended to be on right from the start and they'd blow sides away with a good start. The fact that they can come back from those sort of positions now, that has to indicate a quality side, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to come back from those positions, but I mean, you can say that you can have one good quarter and win a game, but I think we won't be accounted for as a good team until we start playing 4 good quarters. So that's what we just got to aim for, to play 4 good quarters of footy each week.
A lot of collisions in footy now, and you do see, you know, blokes running into each other accidentally. Different though when you get a big bloke who actually makes up his mind to run into somebody. Scotty Turner's done it on a few occasions, hasn't he? He's lined him up once again. Didn't get him in the head like he got Kempy, but gee, that must have taken the wind out of his sails. It must be good to see that happen for your team.
Yeah, it is good. We haven't had a lot of that in the past, so with Scotty Turner and Brett Evans now, who does a little bit of that as well, so it's good to get that physical pressure on other teams.
That was classical. I mean, that was absolutely within the laws of the game. He got so low to get him below the line of the...
Well, smart footy, wasn't it? Because it would have been so easy to just go bang straight into his Wilmer and Fred up here and give away the free kick. But he got low underneath the head because the boy Vardy was stooping down at the time. It was very clever play.
Well, I reckon that one was a lot less contentious than the Kemp one and the Gary O'Donnell one from the 95
But he stayed up on... Kempy stayed up for him. You know, see Vardy's, you know, bent over a little. Which camera? There we are. Has bent over a little bit there, whereas Kemp stayed up, so his head's at his shoulder height, so bad luck. But he was clever then.
That was fair, unlike one of the, well, blackest acts you'd ever see, where umpire Sheehan was viciously and callously laid out by Ben Harrison.
Yeah, and did... Oh, no, you're going to see it here.
I haven't seen it yet myself.
Oh, that's 20 weeks at least.
Well, I just wondered if the other umpire started pointing to him and pointing out the blood on his shirt to get him off the ground.
Or the other umpire pointed at you, Benny, and started yelling out, "We'll get you, we'll get you."
So I don't know why I threw my arm up. It's just a natural reaction when you handball the ball off a training, you throw your arms up to Shefford and out they went. And I felt the contact with the back of the hand.
Did you apologise?
I didn't see him after the game, actually. A couple of the other boys did.
I'd be giving him a call during the week if you want another free kick.
Yeah. Well, he is very dirty on you, Ben. We caught up with him today, and here's his payout.
No, I think Ben was a little bit worried that I was going to knock him off on trial by video or something like that. You know, it was a bit of a joke with the boys after the game, sort of thing, but it was completely accidental, and I don't think he probably even knew at the time either. And I certainly didn't know it was Ben, so it was just an unfortunate accident.
And what's the type of response from the crowd and things like that when you're walking off of the blood nose?
Oh, well, you can imagine it'd be like in Adelaide. It was they're all clapping and cheering and what have you, so they saw it as a great joke, I think. So, and I guess you could look at the humorous side of it, so don't take that too seriously, but I mind you, if I was sitting in the crowd, he'd probably do the same.
That makes you feel real good, that.
You're off the hook. Yeah. I think, does he suffer from haemophilia, Brian Sheehan?
I think he might. I think you're right.
Really? I'll tell you what, though, I mean, a couple of years ago, he wouldn't have given an interview like that, and indeed say not many umpires, but Peter Schwab's brought that to the umpires, trying to get them to be shown to be a little bit more human.
Certainly was a humorous and amusing anecdote.
Yes, I know, but they would have just shut up the shop and just said, oh, we'll be looking at that during the week. I thought it was good.
And as usual, there's some great goal umpire action still to come in the program, but we're saving that up for a bit later on. Matthew Knight's such an important cog, although did have one black moment here, doing the kick in and playing on.
He's probably done that about 10 times this year, and he's got away with it every time, so he was bound to get caught eventually, I suppose. But
he thought obviously he'd fight off the handball, did he? That's what he said.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. But in that situation, especially over there, I mean...
No, I think
just barely, wasn't it?
Well, I suppose at any time when you lose your shorts, you've got a bit of explaining to do, and we caught up with Matthew and asked him to explain today.
I suppose I'd just taken a kick out previously, and I'd got one to Gasper up the middle, and sort of opened play up a bit, and I saw one of our boys up the middle again, and I couldn't quite reach him. I didn't think from the kick out, so I tried to get around Kim Costa, and he got the fingernail in the shorts and slowed me down, and I thought I got the handball away in time, but Brian Sheen didn't think so, so that was sort of the events that happened.
Yes, a very little handball, just a little too little. The Malcolm Blight incident is really one of the talking points out of this game. I mean, what, 3 minutes to go and they're only 13 points down.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I mean, 2 quick kicks and they're 1 point down. I mean, we asked you before, did you see it? No, but there you go. You have the ball, and there he is in screen there. It seems amazing, doesn't it?
I mean, well, the theory is that this is the pathetic Pittman blast circa 1998, and I mean, I guess there could be something in that, but...
They need it, though. They really do need it. I mean, they're travelling ordinarily.
It's a big risk, though, and just listening to what Robert Walls had to say last night on Weekend Wrap, he was certainly less than impressed, and I think he made a valid point. He said, you know, I think the players would be very disappointed their coach walking out on them. Gee, I mean, you know, if the players do react negatively to what he's done there, he might have lost them for the rest of the year.
I think they need a blast, but that wasn't the way to do it. But they do need something done to them. I mean, they're just cruising along at the moment in autopilot, and they're not really. They don't really have the knots up behind them to get them across the line.
Couldn't you argue though that a coach that leaves the box before the end of the game is also cruising?
Well, he probably.
How can he expect them when he demands that they play games out, to take him seriously?
Well, that's just a one-off situation where he's trying to get a point across to him. There's no doubt he would have done that for effect with the players.
But would he forgive a player who obviously gave up?
Oh, of course not. I don't think players ever do give up. Players never give up.
But didn't he give up in doing that?
I think he's not giving up. He's showing to his team that perhaps he wants to give up because of them, but he's not giving up. This is part of the overall plan to try and get them to come back harder. It's an amazing ploy, that's for sure. Look at the crowd.
I guess, and I mean, it is fairly relevant what, you know, this was with how long to go? 2 minutes, I think?
3 minutes, I read.
Was it 3 minutes?
It's enough to kick 4 goals.
Yeah, well, true. I mean, I had the impression initially that, you know, there was no way they could have won when he actually went down and did that. But, look, it's an amazing thing to do. I think this one has a few more ramifications than the Chiefs and Indians stunt at Geelong a few years ago. I think the ramifications of this one could go on for a while.
Ramifications for a couple of players at the tribunal tonight. We've already heard that Andrew Dunkley has been found guilty and suspended for 3 weeks. That was a striking charge. Wayne Carey on the other end of it. And 2 other players were facing charges. Brian Waldron is at the tribunal and I think has results. Brian.
Yes, Tim, I didn't have to be too brave to predict before that Gavin Mitchell was looking pretty favourable in his not guilty plea, and that's what happened. He was cleared of striking Gavin Wanganeen. The interesting point about this case was that Peter Schwab apparently today spoke to the umpire and recommended that he withdraw the charge. Now, I don't know where we go with this. It is good that Peter Schwab is viewing all the cases. It was fairly straightforward. The umpire, Vince Searcy, was 40 metres away, and there was another umpire, Durham, 5 metres away, who had a better view of the whole incident. So it's a pretty silly case that actually did come before the tribunal. It was thrown out very quickly, and fortunately for the Saints, Mitchell is free to play next week.
And Philip Reid?
Yeah, the other case, Philip Reid did plead guilty. It was like a children's court in there. He's only a youngster from Wesley College in Perth. He admitted that he did strike Aaron Hamill. He said he was a little bit put off by Hamill coming towards him with what he thought was a clenched fist. He reacted by pushing the forearm towards Hamill, struck the player, admitted his guilt, and fortunately I think he only received 1 week. Although when you think that he is only a youngster in his first season, probably even a reprimand, as I was talking to Stephen Nash, may have been something worth considering, but it doesn't appear to happen in the tribunal these days, as we know. So Mitchell off, 1 week for Reid, and that's it tonight. Tim, back to you in the studio.
I was just going to ask you, Brian, did they give him detention as well?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I mean, as we said, it could have been held in the children's court. Pretty nerve-wracking in there for the youngsters. And the other interesting point about that, Rowan, is do you give a player a reprimand? I was talking to Stephen Nash, and the possibility is that maybe Collis needs to step up, Brian Collis, and say, listen, youngster, we'll give you a reprimand, but I'm telling you, if you come back here, you'll cop 2 or 3 before you step in the door. And maybe that is more of a deterrent than giving the kid a 1 week penalty for what was a fairly trivial matter. Whilst he did strike him, it wasn't, you know, really deliberate and intentional and of any great force. So things to consider there.
Thanks for that, Brian. Inspiring effort too. Brian Waldron at the tribunal. Andrew Dunkley out for 3, Philip Reid for 1, and Gavin Mitchell was acquitted of that striking charge involving Gavin Wanganeen. But Andrew Dunkley, the big loser there, 3 weeks on a striking charge.
Tim, I've got to say, I should refrain ever again from commenting on tribunals. I thought Mitchell was the most guilty out of all 3 of those cases up tonight.
Wanganeen went down hard, didn't he?
Oh,
but he often does.
He got him with about there. Had it been there and just moved 2 inches north, he was aiming, I thought, and he had to jump off the ground to make contact. So I thought he was as guilty as they go into that room as ever. But who am I? I know nothing about it.
Ben Harrison, thanks for joining us tonight, and a big one coming up on Saturday against the Bulldogs, the ladder leaders.
Yeah, it's huge actually. Geesh was saying tonight it's been a long time since Richmond's been involved in a top of the... Oh, well, I mean, we're 6th and they're 1st, so it's a bit of a blockbuster, so we're looking forward to it. And we're out at Waverley. We haven't been there all year yet, so we're going to train there tomorrow and have a look at the ground, and it should be good.
Good luck. We'll be talking to one of your opponents in that game, Matthew Dent, when we come back after this break. And as we go to the break, Peter Bell missing the unmissable goal at the MCG.
With ease, he gets around Andrew Dunkley, and he sets sail for home with a long bomb. Winston's the player. They're a couple. It's sucking off the ground. They've got through behind. No, it eventually wobbles over. Frantic defence there. Peter Bell trying desperately to soccer it through.
Everybody will love our prices on large screen rear projection televisions from Samsung. Save $2,000 on this huge 132cm model with twin tuning, now $7,495, and you'll get a stereo VCR as a bonus. For this 109cm model, again it has twin tuning and priced to sell at just $49.95. Now they're great prices. Samsung rear projection televisions from your electrical specialists.
White guys that can jump. I'd like to see that.
Men who score every few minutes. I'd like to see that.
So you're supposed to sprint, bouncing a ball, shaped like this. How do you do that?
Off the ground.
Thousands of cheerleaders at every game. I like to see that.
What a kick!
Aussie rules, I'd like to see that.
All those hours of training, the pressure coming from others and from within. What's it like when one performance could decide your future? Get into the heads of our top Commonwealth Games athletes with Insight, 8:30 Wednesday night on Sports Australia.
Yes, a great day for Melbourne at the MCG yesterday, and it was business as usual for the Western Bulldogs at Waverley. They went on winning and they've climbed to the top of the AFL ladder after 8 rounds. It seems that all of the Fitzroy success stories, or most of them, are happening at clubs other than Brisbane. Pike and Chandler doing well at North Melbourne, and Matthew Dent shining in the Western Bulldogs defence. He played all but one game for the Doggies last year, took 131 marks, second only to Chris Grant, and he's playing very well in defence this year, and he joins us tonight. Matthew, have you just been swept along by the Bulldog momentum? Because it seems that everyone is playing really well.
Yeah, no, it's been a fantastic turnaround from the 96 season where I left Fitzroy and went to Western Bulldogs. Actually, to start off with, I wasn't very happy with where I actually went, but I knew if we had a good run with injuries and Terry Wallace got the boys fired up for the 97 season, that it would follow on and perhaps turn into a good year, which it did, and we're starting to turn the 98 season on from where 97 finished off, so it's just been fantastic so far this year.
So had you wanted to go to Brisbane?
I was quite happy to really get picked up by anyone because I just wanted to have another chance of playing AFL footy, but when Brisbane showed no interest in me, I wasn't too concerned where I went.
I must say the irony of the situation, apart from Malloy and also Johnson going to Brisbane, a few of the others have fallen by the wayside. You look through all the rest of the players who were at Fitzroy in that final game, and it's a bit of a famous team sheet now, and you look at it and you say, hey, it wasn't that bad a side, they just couldn't win a game.
Yeah, well, that's it. We were just lacking a couple of quality key players. If we had probably a full forward, a centre-half forward and a full back, I reckon we could have been a lot more competitive than what we really were.
Rowan Wharf was named at centre-half back, and that's there's another name that's bobbed up and been a quality performer as well.
I actually happened to watch the North Melbourne Sydney game, and he did quite well, and he certainly had the ball on the string against us up in Sydney, so it's good to see him playing well too. Your
own form, whenever there's a job like, say, a Nathan Buckley type situation, you seem to get that job out at the Western Bulldogs?
Yeah, maybe in 97 I found I was getting a lot of jobs to do on key players, but this year I've actually haven't had quite as many jobs to do. We've had Stephen Crediuk, who's stepped up, and he's taken a lot of tagging roles, and even Brad Weir's come up from the back pocket, and he's actually done a lot of tagging roles, so I've been mainly just put back on the half-back flank or the back pocket and just mainly picked up a key forward.
Do you think the strength to the Dogs at the moment, and where I see it, is that they've got such a band of about 8 or 9 midfielders who are capable, and some of them are brilliant, and if one of them gets sat on, he just takes him and his opposition number out of the heat zone, and they put in one of the other 8 or 9 who's capable of going in there and doing the job.
Well, a perfect example of Rowan Smith on the weekend. He's had a fairly quiet season this year compared to 97 season. He's actually been sat on every week, and Scott West and Jose Ramiro have been fortunate enough to be able to play a bit more of their own game, where they both got sat on fairly heavily on the weekend, and Rowan Smith was able to create plenty of space, and his opponent probably wasn't as close checking as what Ramiro's and West were, and he was able to pick up a lot of the ball, and he returned back to form in a good way.
Now, further to that, Matthew, I think the sign of a really good side is one that doesn't panic, perhaps, when they get behind. And I was sitting at the MCG yesterday, and the score came up on the board that Jason Dunstall had kicked 6 first-quarter goals. So naturally, I thought that you blokes would be under the pump a little bit, but you did win still going away, and I think that's a sign of a very good side.
Yeah, that was very good. That's probably been the downfall of our season so far. We've been very slow to start, and we've assessed that this week at training so far, and we're working on that. But yeah, when he certainly kicked 6 in the first quarter, we were just fortunate enough to kick 5, and we knew if we stopped Jason that we could stop Hawthorn.
He kicks a soccer goal at the end. We might go back to that and have a look at it. And apart from being just one of those magical 6 in the first quarter, you will see one of the magical pieces of goal umpiring of all time. But here it comes now. Just watch this closely. This is a wonderful piece of work. And in fact,
only you would spot that too. We're all watching the ball. Denty, on that though, I mean, he's kicked, what, 5 or 6 of them on Crofty. He's a quality performer, and he gets the likes of the Wayne Carey each week. And yet Crediuk's able to step up, and I've seen Jason kick a few bags on Crediuk. So Crediuk really must have risen to the occasion, knowing that, in all essence, the best big, tall defender you've got in the back line, in the absence of Ellis, has had a swag kicked on him in short time.
Well, that's right. Well, Matthew Croft's actually held the back line up this year. Like, he's had a couple of really big key jobs to do, and he's done them. And just unfortunately, Jason got on top of him, and yeah, Stephen Crediuk's, he's returned back to his best form this year. He's been fantastic.
Because he's not a big man.
No, not big, but he's very strong. And he, when he wants to attack the ball, he really attacks it hard, and he makes a few of the forward blokes worry and know that he's around.
Look, I like goal umpires, as you know, and I just do want to show you this again, because in fact what we did in the studio earlier was just freeze the frame at the crucial moment.
And, give it to us. Oh, that's magnificent, isn't it? That is magnificent.
Would that be the highlight of the season so far?
For you, Tim, I've got absolutely no doubt that it would be.
You've written an article. Were you talking about me without naming names last week in the Age?
You were one of the many
too much discussion about goal umpires this year.
But had there been more of that, I've been happy to speak. I've got to say. Matthew, Terry Wallace has been well documented as one of the more innovative coaches of recent times. What do the players think of it? Do you sit back each week and say, gee, what's player going to come up with this week? Or does he introduce it slowly, or does he just say, listen, bang, here it is, we're going out to warm up before the game?
Oh, geez, I was quite surprised looking at the Year of the Dog 96 tape. I thought, geez, he certainly hasn't been that boisterous this year and last year, luckily. But no, he's quite lucky that we've been winning. I haven't really seen the bad side of Terry yet, but he's always coming up with new ways of trying to motivate the guys. And unfortunately, I don't know why, Jamie, they wouldn't let us train out on Waverley before a game this week. So
I've got no idea there, mate. I'm only a director of the club.
Conspiracy.
We had to train in the rooms, and we just had a bit of the old type of warm-up, and he just made a bit of a speech and sort of got the boys fired up a bit. So, no, he's a great motivator. He seems to be getting more out of the players than what a lot of them have.
You practice these long goals. I mean, you kicked a hell of a lot of goals from around the 50-metre mark, both on the run and from set shots. I mean, did you do a lot of that practice, or is that just something you're blessed with, guys that do kick well on the run?
We do a little bit of it, but we don't actually do a lot of drills around goal kicking. We mainly, a lot of the blokes do it in their spare time. He expects blokes to do it in their spare time, and a few of the blokes get out there after the training session and actually have a bit of a competition, so I suppose that's where it might come from.
Just quickly on the final, so Terry Wallace, before the game, you mentioned you go out in the ground, you'd still think, Gary, that the coach would talk to you and give you that hot gospel rev up before you go out. Once you come back in off the ground with your warm-up, Matthew, does Terry say anything to you collectively?
Just one probably 2-minute speech, and
so it's not long?
No, it's not long. And mainly we have a meeting like on a Friday night if it's a Saturday game, and or Saturday morning if it's a Sunday game. He goes through everything and has a bit of a meeting then and a bit of a speech, but he probably takes us in the room about for 5 minutes at longest and gives us a bit of a speech, and then we're out.
Well, Matthew, not one, but many people suggested that the great man here, Dermot Brereton, would make a fantastic coach, and he's a very eloquent speaker with a,
Just before you proceed with this, this heralds the end of our segment. So
does it?
We probably should just wrap it up with Matthew and thank him, because we're about to go to a break. But thanks for joining us, Matthew. It's been good to have you on the show, and I've seen your last 2 games, and you've been terrific back there. You're sort of just going along quietly, but it seems as though everyone's playing with such enormous confidence and resolve, which I suppose stems to a certain degree from what happened at the end of the final series last year.
Yeah, well, that's still burning inside of every player that played in that last game in '97, 2-point loss, and eventually they went on to be Premier, so that's still burning inside. We've still got a lot to prove to the football public. A lot of people think we're just playing on passion and emotion in that first year that I went there. Maybe we were, but
I think, if I can just butt in, I think less people are thinking that now, though.
Maybe now, yes.
Mate, if it's burning in there, I reckon that's a very healthy thing for you blokes.
So
good luck.
We're looking forward to doing well this year, just to prove all those people who haven't jumped on the bandwagon yet that we are a good footy side.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a bit of mental instability in your players, burning inside, they can't rest, all that sort of thing. Might kind of make some crimes happen out there, but for footballers it's good, you know.
Good on you, Matthew. Thanks for joining us. And Gary, here's your chance.
Oh, I'll pick up where I left off. No, I'm just talking about this eloquent young man who dresses very well and speaks, you know, with great clarity and diction. And of course, he was commentating on a match on Saturday night, and just a little slip of the tongue from Dermot Brereton. He's a human after all.
Sirakowski will be his target. He's wandering through. Oh, he's got the chip shot in short.
There's one for footy feedback on Monday night.
That was
Villa
chip
takes
shot,
the mark.
wasn't it? Chip shot. Yeah, with the 9 on. You know what I said, and I won't hear a word about it.
Dermot, if you were John Carl, I'll get you out of this situation. Don't worry. Wouldn't you drag...
Nice Harley.
Yeah. These are our heroes. This is the song we sing. This is devotion, and this is loyalty. These are our heroes. We can all dream to be. It's simple and it's right. I want my football every night. Nothing beats it, that's what I say. I want my football every day. I want my football. I want my football. I want my football. I want my football.
Here's something to yell about. We've got cute canines, cuddly cats, kissing camels, heroic horses, cheeky chimps, elephants that fly, pandas that death defy, gorillas going ape, lions that growl. During May, we roll out the movies where the animals are the stars in Animal Antics on Movie Extra.
Mustn't have liked what he was saying. Silence is golden. That's round one, Wayne might say, against his old side.
During the break, Dermot was telling us that he felt his chip shot comment just dribbling out of his mouth and he couldn't stop it. What exactly was dribbling out of your mouth?
Yes.
The words?
The final word, yes, and let's move on.
Tell us about Brendan Lade and Barry Hall on Saturday night, because you watched that with a certain amount of interest.
Yeah, I did, and Lade played a kick behind play, and that was all right under the instructions of the coach, but I think Jack Carr would have liked his player Brendan Lade to be perhaps, when he wins the ball, pushing up the ground with it on the play out, but he just won the ball in the easy contested situation, stayed there and didn't really play a kick behind play such as a Jimmy Steins can play in that regard. And I didn't think Hall played his way through the traffic very well. There's a couple of times he had the opportunity when the ball was coming in the forward line to just run a semicircle and present himself again, but just mentally just didn't put himself in a range. I'm a big believer when you're playing in the forward line, you can force your teammates to kick to you by being in the right spot, and he doesn't do that.
We'll just hear a bit more of your commentary on Saturday night, and this time there are no
Not another blue?
of the tongue. This is absolutely relevant.
Go back to that one in the middle where Barry Hall was coming through and should have taken the and took the chest mark. The Port Adelaide player, as Aussie Jones comes, he likes this situation. Can't thread it. The Port Adelaide player really needed to run straight at Barry Hall. A lot smaller in stature. I think it was Braden Lyle, but timing is everything, and really, legitimately, and it could have been a perfect execution. Could have put Barry Hall out of the game.
Got the wrong one there. I mean, I was talking about the way they were playing the game as well, but that one, yeah, I stand by that. You put a bloke out of the game. The the thing about Australian rules footy is you have 18 men on the other side, and now there's such a grey area within our rules. You can, like in the rules of boxing, to win a boxing game, you have to render your opponent to a state where he's no longer able to compete against you. Australian rules football is a ball sport that allows heavy contact. You can use those rules to your advantage. They should have been one short then, St Kilda. So I'm convinced that he should have poleaxed him.
Well, if you didn't put him out of the game, at least let him know he was around.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a wonderful thing, Gary, if you can get blokes running like that back into their forward line, knowing that somebody's coming the other way, but they're not going to get hurt. You've got to do something so next time they go like that.
I agree wholeheartedly. I just think that footy now, that's being umpired out of players, and I think it's wrong, but I just think the inclination to do that is not there anymore. Whereas it was 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago more so, the inclination now is not to do it for a number of reasons.
Does it feel safer playing the game?
I haven't noticed any great difference, but if you did stop to think about it, like if you were Barry Hall running with that ball, which you would never think about, but you'd say, oh, look, it's a bit safer to do this now than it was in days gone by.
And if you're Brendan Wade, you might be thinking about some of the... I mean, there's been 3 or 4 cases already this year where guys have come in just fractionally late and been reported, much to people's surprise. But I haven't been on the field, I'm happy to admit that, but didn't look good. Didn't look good, though. Didn't look good.
Oh, no.
He obviously made a conscious choice. He was going to mark the ball late.
But don't you at least... You have to exert some sort of physical pressure, don't you?
Well, he waited for the ball to get to him.
Of course, I'd have no qualms about running into Barry Hall at full tilt.
I tell you what, though, you could be Philip Matera and you could run into Barry Hall in that situation. Why didn't you turn side on and place the shoulder where it should go?
Barry Fowler and John Nicol.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. As long as you place the shoulder where it should go, it's all about force equals mass times acceleration.
Although,
use the other bloke's force and
it's not within the
mass.
laws of the game if you're not going for the ball in a marking situation.
That's true.
Talking to the wrong bloke, Tim.
No one...
You can disguise it, though. Watch this. Sorry, here we go with Nicky Winmarsh. We'll move on Ned's goal.
Don't like to focus on goal umpiring all the time, but this is one that looks like a goal umpiring error. In fact, as we have a look at a slow-mo from behind the sticks, you'll see it clearly is an error, and a very bad one. I think brought about because Winmar's kick curled and the goal umpire just didn't get far enough across, and he was anticipating it was going through for a goal and it curled late.
I think this goal umpiring question's been dropped from the panel for the next 2 weeks, which is probably fair enough, because you do look at that and you think, well, he is clearly in the wrong position.
He's changed his decision, of course.
The bottom line is, thank God they corrected the decision.
Well done,
one of the great innovations of Sports AFL is to have the commentators behind the goals. Now, who was sitting behind that
Craig
goal?
Kelly.
And did he call it, Dermot?
Well, he is cement head. If we had a view there, Gary, we would have got the accurate call.
I would have done, but he didn't call it.
No.
Disappointing, Craig.
Oh, Craig. Yeah, don't worry.
I think he was too busy worrying about the soccer hooligans at Olympic Park, just quietly.
This is reminiscent of one we saw last week. Michael Wilson in front. Now, seemed to be crunched from behind, but in slow-mo, Lowe actually makes clean contact with the ball. Now, is the push in the back permissible? No free kick?
I think clear intent on the ball, and the arm comes over and makes a strike with the ball. It's only Lowe's chest that makes contact in the just natural affliction of
excellent
playing condition.
Excellent decision.
Yep.
And yet you all ridiculed me last week when we had Ken Judge here and we talked about one that had happened in Western Australia.
I think the timing of that is different. I think he was there earlier than the one last week. I thought he was late last week and high and more...
about 1 frame late.
Yes, which in footy parlance is a long time.
There's a fair bit in that. I mean, Lowe's made contact with the ball first, and of course, the heads hit his chest, whilst the other boy went out of his way to round arm around the back of the head and could never ever do anything but take the head of an opponent.
A lot messier.
I think
It was well disguised.
Now here is a high controversy and drama which prompted an outburst from Gerard Neesham. Tim Shearer right on that, only, what, 10 metres away, paid the mark. Now, Peter Carey's come from the centre to disallow it.
Now, there's no... Since the start of last year, they've been instructed to overrule if they have a clear view. What I want to know is, and I think this is a fairly important question, it's clear, I'm presuming Carey would have been by far the most experienced umpire of the three. He was the senior umpire, he did it. But, you know, say it had been him 5 metres away and the more junior umpire Shearer in the middle of the ground, would he have overruled? And I tend to think not. And that's one of the flaws of the system.
Who says who's got the clearer view? I mean, 10 metres away is surely a clearer view than... And he's on the right side.
He's on the right side. No, look, I'm not agreeing with what happened, but what I'm saying is one of the real dangers of this system is that if you're a junior umpire, you're going to be loath to overrule an umpire the seniority of Carey, whereas he obviously had no qualms about overruling the other guy.
That's a point.
What's the comment from Peter Schwab? And has there been any official comments?
That he felt comfortable that Carey, the senior umpire, had the courage of his convictions and go up and do it. He didn't make a comment on the actual ruling.
I reckon that's a bad one. I mean, it's such a marginal thing. A guy 4 or 5 metres away has paid it. How can a guy 40 metres away have a better view?
Yeah. And do we know that it wasn't the mark? I mean, there were reports that, in fact, the right decision was ultimately given, and yet looking at that, it looked as though it might well have been.
Well, I thought he marked it. I thought he arms down, hit the arm and came up.
We'll have a look at, I don't think we saw it there, but Waterhouse's reaction just makes you think he caught it because he was unhappy.
Well, I mean, if he took the mark, it seems an incredibly presumptuous decision.
Absolutely. If that's the precedent they're setting, that is fraught with danger.
Another controversial one, Anthony Koutafidis close to the boundary line here. Now, he actually gets to it inside, takes it over. You would think it had to be a mark or out on the full, but in fact the decision was a throw in.
So they're suggesting he had 2 bites, one inside and one outside. It's a bit hard to tell. The shadow comes into play here.
Actually, that one is a lot more open to dispute than... There was one in the Melbourne-Collingwood game yesterday, I'm hoping you'll remember, Gaz, but a Collingwood player took what was a clear mark, and similar situation, they ruled that, you know, the final juggle was... I
can't help you, unfortunately.
Yeah, okay, thanks for working with me on
that. That one's a lot harder for us to comment on because it was a bit hard to see and it was very tight, and his body covered the ball as he rolled over.
Actually, you can't say that television is dominating football because if it was, they wouldn't play at Subiaco with those shadows. Here's a great moment at the end of the match. Terrific comeback from Carlton, and Mick Malthouse waiting for David Parkin to come out and no doubt saying, keep your chin up.
We'll be talking about the job next year.
Well, that's, I was going to say, the more cynical people would be suggesting he might be asking, who do I need to get rid of next year?
You blokes are absolute shockers.
Yes, I wouldn't have thought of
that. Sorry.
It was good though, wasn't it?
Oh, I reckon it's fantastic. Both guys have been under the pump a bit. I don't think there's any way they would have escaped the fact that Sheedy, Malthouse and Parkin, from various sections of the media, have come under a fair bit of scrutiny in recent times, and a bit of solidarity amongst the older generation. Good thing.
Let's see some great stuff from the MCG. Leon Shelley.
Yeah, well, we've had a look at this tonight already, and I remember I wrote an article about a month ago about players that are clean under pressure, and I mean, it's so well illustrated here. I mean, the dying moments, that was just a pivotal time in the match. Just needed someone to take a hot footy and break the pack, clear a line, and it virtually sealed the victory for us.
Well, it did, because it ended up going for a throw-in at the end of that disposal, and I remember looking at the clock and there was, I think, 42 seconds left. It then basically stayed in your forward line from memory, so that won them the game. He's been fantastic this year.
Yeah, look, he's one of those guys you just unearthed from the amateurs.
Oh,
the VAFA just plucked in Barry Richardson on his advice, and he's done some enormous jobs this year and probably been our best 3 or 4 players.
And just while we're on that tram too, and harping on a familiar theme here, but it really, the success of he and Guy Rigoni and the McDonald brothers really does underline what a silly premise that whole merger proposal was based on. And it was basically, we can't get better under the system the way it is. Well, they've shown in less than 2 years that they can. They've picked up 8 or 9 players straight out of the system, and it's a completely different side, far more competitive. And I think there's no doubt now that that was a really stupid premise to attempt a merger on, don't you think?
I would have to agree with you, Ron.
I wonder if the greatest get of all might be the coach, Neil Danaher, who is enjoying an enormous start to the season. He commented after the match on that effort of Leoncelli's, and listen to the passion in his voice as he talks about it.
I thought Leoncelli's effort at the end, when the ball was there just bumbling around and there was a bloke in a red and blue Guernsey just nailed the ball. I thought that when he did that and ran down the ground and the ball up was the other end, I thought that effort's just won us the game.
Great stuff. We'll hear a little more from Neil Danaher in just a moment, and Gary might have a comment to make. But another couple of new names, Gergic and Johnston.
Yeah, they'll become pretty familiar names, certainly to Melbourne people, and I think the footy public in general. This guy's our #1 pick at the 1996 November draft, and he's played 15 games, played a fair bit of reserves footy as well, and this guy, of course, was our first pick. And you'd expect to get it right with this fella. I mean, you had the first pick of all the available talent in the country.
I was worried about him, but in the last 2 weeks I've seen, in a winning and losing team, he has been fantastic.
Yeah, look, he had compartment syndrome, an operation on his shins pre-season, so he had no preparation, so we just had to nurse him in, and he did some things that just reeked of class. He's 17 years old, rocks up to training in his school uniform. And this bloke here, well, he's played back pocket on smalls.
He's laconically quick, isn't he?
He's a great athlete, and he turned the match for us.
2 youngest guys on the list, don't
Well, yeah, I mean, that just tells you how important it is to pick well at the draft over the course. And look, you know, he's just in the right place. He knows how to play. He's not a strong kid, but you don't see him get pushed off the footy too often, and he'll just get better and better.
And a word from you on your new coach?
Look, he's been outstanding. I think his preparation and his attention to detail and his match planning from week to week has been, exceptional. I think I made the comment here a few weeks ago. I haven't seen him out-coached this year. Jeff Gershon probably came as close as any, and we lost the game.
Just hear another word from Neil Danaher after what was a great triumph, and from the Melbourne coach, some humour and some honesty.
How's the heart? Yeah, good, mate. Yeah. never in doubt, was it? Look, very special day for our club. Spoke to the fellas at 3/4 time where we kidded ourselves last week. At 3/4 time, we're in a situation where the game was there for us. Listen, none of us is going live, is it? I told the blokes not to bullshit each other. Last week they bullshitted each other 3/4 time. They said, oh, yeah. And then it was very important that they looked each other in the eye and just don't do that again. And that's the thing I was very proud about, the fact that, it was a great game. I told them, I know it was probably a bit dishonest, but I said, I don't care whether we win, lose or draw. They've got to come off and be able to look each other in the eye at the end of the game. And they were terrific.
Rowan, you'd enjoy him after a match. I think he actually says something and he speaks from the heart and with honesty.
Oh, it's fantastic, yeah. Well, I asked him about how did he feel about the clash against Essendon. He said, oh, your side, yeah, what am I going to do there? But, no, look, he's been great, and don't be mistaken, don't be fooled by the country draw. He's a very, very intelligent man.
Looking ahead to what's on Sports AFL this week, Channel 13, Brisbane Lions and Adelaide live from the Gabba on Saturday night at 7:15. Footy Focus Thursday night at 7:30. Before all of that, Pete Donegan, Barras, Harves, Billy, Colo. What a great lineup. And we'll be back next Monday night.
Cookers next, I reckon.
Who's the chief? That's it for tonight. Thanks for joining us. Good night.